Alright guys, today we're going to go over the BE series of plows for case. These are Eagle Hitch plows, so they use the Eagle Hitch snap lock 3-point system. They are claws that open up so that you can hitch up to the plow quickly, in theory, without getting off of the tractor. However, in reality, I don't believe there's hardly any hitching system that you can hook up without getting off the tractor. I'm sorry, it's just a reality we have to deal with. You got to get off the tractor. So I have a brochure here that goes over all of these plow models. This is in the 1950s. This plow brochure goes over the C series, A series, M series, BE series, which is what we're going over, and the T series. These plow models, some of them ran concurrently, which is kind of strange to me because the BE series is, I would say, is the older of the series for Eagle Hitch plows, but they also offer the M series in here, which in my mind is the next newer, that you would see probably in the later half of the 50s going into the 60s. The BE series uses the old girder beam style, as I like to call it. Basically, they took a lot of the fundamentals from the Centennial Model C or B series plows. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember. The old Centennial plows used the old box girder beam and the same Coulter assemblies, more or less. A lot of the components are pulled over from that. So you could actually, I believe, take the tailwheel assembly from a Centennial plow and bolt it onto a BER. Don't know why you'd want to, but you could. So these come in from 2 to 4 bottoms, and that's what the brochure says. I believe I've seen a few 5 bottoms for sale at auctions at one point, but I don't have any pictures of those right now. I kind of wish, and I may have to dig them up. But these came in 12, 14, and 16-inch bottom spacing. 12 being the most uncommon. If you find a 12-inch spacing one, latch onto it because they're very rare. But just know if you get a 12-inch, you're probably not going to find any replacement parts for it because they were so rare back in the day. You're probably not going to find anything, especially now, because they're just, no one offers them. If you guys, well, you could get these in the older style CX blacksmith bottoms. Those are the ones with the long nose on them that a blacksmith could repoint for you. And you could get these in the newer EX style bottoms, which had the throwaway shares. The good news for those of us who want to use these today is they are still making the EX plow parts, at least as of right now. So you can get an EX 16 moldboard and an EX 16 plowshare. They will bolt up to any of the bottoms for these plows, so you can, go, even if you have a 14-inch spacing, you can go and get these 16-inch parts. You can cut down the plowshare so it's 14. It's not going to hurt anything if it's longer. And the moldboards just stick out a little bit further, so they curve and throw the soil a little bit further. So it's not going to hurt anything if you have a 14 and you put some 16-inch parts on it. And I guarantee no one's really going to be able to tell from a distance, or even up close, or even care. So let's go over a few things in the picture here. So we've got a 4-bottom BER plow hooked to a Case 400 tractor. Now we'll see later on there'll be some pictures of some earlier DCs and SCs and even some BACs. Like I said, this is a series of plows that was offered for several years, maybe half a decade, maybe a whole decade. I don't have the production run numbers on this, but we can see it's over several different models. And as a series of plows, there were several different offerings between the tractors, particularly the VAC, I believe, has some different varieties that are the same form factor with a few minor changes. So on this 4-bottom plow, we can see that he has a hydraulic cylinder on it. And this is the hydraulic depth adjust that's on the mast of the plow. Case plows with Eagle Hitch did not use draft control like a lot of the other 3-point systems. It is all user controlled So you are the one that has to set the depth of the plow. When you drop the plow on the ground, you want to make sure, well, I won't get into the nitty-gritty details. Suffice it to say, you can think of it like an airplane wing. If the nose of the plow is pointed down and you lower it into the ground, because it's on the arc of the tractor hitch, it is going to try and dive and drill into the ground until it levels out, and then it will run true. At least that's in theory. If you raise the nose of the plow, it will then try and shoot itself up out of the ground, or raise itself up in the ground far enough until it levels out, and then will travel smoothly through the field. And it actually does work pretty well. You would think that hydraulic cylinder would just be popping the plow up and down, but because of the arms that it runs on in there, it's actually a very minor adjustment. And if you ever get a chance to run one of these that does have the hydraulic adjust, or even a hydraulic top link, because it's the same function, maybe a little bit jerkier, but if you ever get the opportunity to run one of these out in the field, set aside 100, 150 feet. Don't do it in a short amount of, you're not gonna be able to do this in 10 or 15 or 20 feet. You need some time to get some practice on it, but if you do get the space for it, run it to the full extreme from one side to the other and see how it performs in the field. And I guarantee you'll see that it will ride up out of the ground, and it will go deeper within some respects. The interesting thing with these is you could get these without the hydraulic mast on it, and you could also get it with hydraulic mast. And if you didn't want to use the hydraulic mast, or you had a tractor that didn't have hydraulics, you could simply pull the cylinder out and clamp the two oh shoot, the braces there that run the hydraulic cylinder. You can clamp them together and make it a rigid mast. The other thing to point out here is that this plow, since it is mounted on rigid eagle hitch only goes up and down. Unless you have one that's sloppy and worn out, it will not sway side to side like a traditional 3-point. And because of that, they have put in a sway function on the plow. But not only a sway function, it will also break away if it hits an obstruction. So back here we can see the rear part of the breakaway, and up here we can see this little L-shaped piece is one of the front that kind of is a stop for it. We'll see some more pictures of that here in a minute. Alright, so here we go. We've got a couple pictures here of the, on the left, it's a 3-bottom BER. This one does not have the hydraulic mast on it. It has the turnbuckle link, and it's on a Case DC tractor. Notice he's got 2 sets of wheel weights on that DC. On the right here, we've got what looks like an SC. He's also running a 3-bottom without a hydraulic mast, and he does not have rear wheel weights, so he must be running in some lighter soil. At the top here, we've got kind of a front view, and like I was saying earlier, we can see there's the rigid link that you could then unbolt and pop up and bolt back in place. You can put your hydraulic cylinder on there if you wanted. You can actually see the mount of it right here on the bottom. And then we can see the pivoting and breakaway function. This isn't a great picture for it. And this one has a different breakaway function than some of them. You'll see again, it's a series of plows, so some of them will have different setups in here. If you're going to be using one of these, I highly recommend you take this apart, clean it. There'll be grease fittings in there. You need to grease it, not only to make sure that it breaks away if it hits something, but also that it pivots correctly, because the pivot and release point is right here in the center of the mast. And then back here on the end, we can see where the tail end of the mast, the horn, goes through its little locking pivot assembly. And these 2 nubs back here are spacers that you can move independently and set how far you want the plow to swivel on its tail. So these came with a steel tail wheel. I don't believe there was a pneumatic one as an option. And you'll notice that the shanks that go up onto the frame for the coulters are very short, and that's because, at least for the front one, it needs to be short so that when the plow breaks away, if it was a tall one, the plow mast would just snag on it and either break it, break your plow, or flip the plow up out of the way and do a whole bunch of damage. So that's why they're shorter on these plows. A lot of other plows that Case produced and before and after this will have taller ones that you can get to a little bit easier. That's one of the drawbacks. If you're using these for competitions, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because it's harder to get your coulters dialed in easily because you can't get to the shanks to adjust them. All right, yet another model of tractor on the plow. We've got a Case 300 here. Looks like he's got spin-out rims on the rear with at least one. Oh, nope, there's two sets of wheel weights in there. So again, we've got a 3-bottom BE series. The 3-bottom has a so if it was if it was 3 bottoms and over, you would have a backbone on it that would reinforce it. And this one, we can also see has the concave disc coulters. So they would kind of perform the same function as a straight coulter blade with a jointer on it. And the jointer is basically a little plow share and moldboard that turns the soil over from the coulter and kind of does a better job of plowing. And they're actually doing a pretty good job of plowing here. It'd be interesting to know what kind of soil they're plowing in. So the 300 is their smaller series. They basically combined the SC and VAC tractor models to make the 300. It's basically just it's a VAC on steroids. But they are lighter tractors, and on this one you will see that they have the optional front wheel weights on it. You could also put a front weight out on a cast weight up there. I have a kind of custom cast weight toolbox that adds a little bit of weight because even a 2-bottom plow is a lot of weight on the back of a 300 trying to lift it out of the ground and maneuver. So again, we can see here that we've got a factory, and this is a factory Case hydraulic cylinder on the adjustable hydraulic mast. And this is the same cylinder they would use on, regular trail type plows, any of their implements. And it has a little spring detent on there so you could set certain stops that you wanted. I don't believe you would use that in this situation. It isn't really necessary for how slow and how little movement you get when you're using it. We can see the tail end of the mast assembly in here. This is the part that pivots left and right. And when the plow breaks away, on the front side of that, it has kind of a cone shape so you can easily get it backed into place. So this one does not look like they have the stops on there. They can be taken off and thrown in a toolbox or just lost typically. All right, so we have a VAC 14 here. That's one of the last series of VAC where you sit down low on it like a Ford or a Ferguson tractor. Looks like they have a set of rear wheel weights on there as well as the VAC front weights. And this is a BE series that I believe was more specifically made for the VAC tractor. I would wager, based on the spacing, just looking at this, probably a 12-inch model. And in this picture, they appear to be demonstrating plowing on the contour around a hill. So again, since it's a 2-bottom, it does not appear that they have any special backbone on there, but all the other components appear to be the same from our limited view here. On the right, we appear to have artist rendition of a DC pulling a 3-bottom BER. And then at the top, we have a side view of the hydraulic adjust system. So right here, we've got our hook that comes over that our mast bar would back into to hold it and allow it to pivot. And we've got our adjusting top link assembly here. So again, if you didn't want to use this, you could unpin your cylinder, pull it off, and then this would bolt up. So it basically, some of these holes will lock together and make it a rigid unit, so you could just keep your top link and just, if you didn't want to mess around with it. If you didn't have variable soil types. This was typically used on variable soil types. If you hit a hard spot, you could adjust your plow so it plowed shallower if you really needed to. A lot of people nowadays could get away with just if they didn't have this, they could just put a hydraulic top link on there. Again, because you don't have the lever action of this assembly, it's probably going to be a little bit jerkier and not as smooth, but it's better than nothing. I wish I had more pictures of this, but this is an artist rendition of the breakaway function, and you can see our cone assembly here in the back that the tail of the mast goes into, and our two front hook portions where our lower lift bar goes into. And we can see that down here. Here's our lower lift bar, and here are our two front hook masts, and there's our cone in the back that it goes through. Again, we got a 400 model here pulling a 4-bottom. So I don't believe I have any pictures in here, but there was an optional depth gauge wheel that would go on it, and it would bolt on back sort of towards the tail wheel, and it would ride out of the furrow. It would ride on the unplowed ground. They would change that spacing and the whole depth wheel assembly on the next plow, the Model M. All right, so I believe here we've got a later style SC with eagle hitch on the left, and on the right we've got a DC, and they both are running 3-bottom eagle hitch plows. On the left one, we do not have jointers. On the right one, we can actually see that there are wraparound jointers on each of our coulters, which is an option for all of the case plows. Again, these have the turnbuckles, so these do not have the optional hydraulic depth adjust. That was extra cost from the factory to get that put on your plow. And that will conclude it for right now. Maybe in the future, if I get some more information and I get my things together, I'll go in a more deep dive on the BE series. Probably the next one we'll tackle is the Model M series. I have had a BE, actually a few BEs, and I currently own an M series that I use for competition plowing. So hopefully I get that recorded here soon and get it put up for everybody. If you guys like this, you find it informational. If there's anything else you want to know about it, anything else I should go over, please put it in the comments, and I will try to cover those topics at a later time.